What is up, people of YouTube? I'm your host Vernon. This is Tool Springs. Let's fish that. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, the wife and I made it out here to Floydland Park for some relaxing fishing. We have our carp setup out there, as well as some hot dogs for channel catfish, but we'll see if we get anything on that. But that's not going to be the focus for this video. I want to have a look at catching some bluegill or sunfish. Now, I've quite often stated that this is the time of year to try and find them, and I quickly want to have a look at that. Okay, so let's see what we can get using a bobber and a tiny hook with some night crawlers on there and just casting that out. Gonna wait for the night crawler to sink down a bit, give it a few seconds. If nothing happens, cast to the next spot. Alright guys, and there we go. Fish on. Our first little bluegill for today. Second fish for the day. Tiny hooks, small baits, under a bobber. Just cast it out and we get some fish. Let's get this lovely guy back into the water. And off he goes. Okay, so using a little bobber or float with some line to a small hook and small baits is a way that you can catch some of these fish, but it's actually not the ideal way to do it this time of the year. That is actually more a summer tactic. The reason why I'm saying this, you need to understand the way that it works. Fish are of course cold-blooded. That does not mean that the blood is cold. That just means that they don't generate heat themselves. They get their heat from outside sources, like for example the water. So as soon as the water gets warmer, these fish actually heat up and their metabolisms increase, meaning they actually need to feed in order to survive. That is why during summer it's quite easy to catch these fish, because they need to eat about anything they can get. So you can even catch them on some McDonald's fries. That is a great time of the year where they kind of need to feed on anything, so anything you throw out there will work. And because of the grass growing, it helps to have a little bobber and suspend your baits. That is when you actually want to use this. For the time being, however, the water temperatures are actually quite still cold, meaning these fish aren't as active and they are very picky in what they want to feed on. Okay, so how do we then target these fish this time of year? We need to find something that looks natural in the water. If you think about something like a night crawler, that's not going to be sitting in the middle of the water column. That's going to sink down to the bottom. So we need to replicate this by using something like a split shot or a little Carolina rig. We can fish our little worms down on the bottom. And of course using something like flies. Now you don't just need a fly rod to use flies. You can also put some flies below your bobber. Great way of suspending flies in the water, because there are certain bugs that do float in the water column. If you mimic something like that, you might even get some of these fish. Furthermore, it is important to not just fish anywhere. You have to kind of think about where it is you're fishing. These fish aren't going to sit in the middle of the water for no good reason, especially on sunny days. They're going to go for cover, any place where you have some shady trees around or any structure underwater, some submerged trees and stuff in the water. You want to focus around these areas because that's where the fish are going to school together. Okay, but let's see if we change the way we approach these fish, if we can catch some more out there. And there we go, guys. Our first little green sunfish today. bigger mouth than the bluegill. Let's quickly get this guy off the hook. And there we are, guys. Tiny little green sunfish as well. This one I just used a little split shot with a little night crawler down on the bottom. That was all it takes, and that's all it takes to get a little green sunfish to go for it. Let's get him back into the water. There we go, fish on. That's a green sunfish, actually.
Seen your videos, man. You're on YouTube, bro.
Yeah.
Love the videos, man.
Thanks. Okay, so this little guy just swallowed the hook, so I'm quickly going to go get some pliers to see if I can get out the hook without damaging the fish too much. So let's quickly go get the pliers. Alright guys, we're just giving the fish some oxygen in the water again. And I'm using some small forceps to try and get out the hook. Alright guys, sadly this little guy that we caught is not going to survive it. He's bleeding internally, meaning we cannot release this guy. He's not going to survive. Even if we do throw this fish back into the water, hoping some of the herons and stuff will eat it, they will not go for a dead fish. If it's just lying on the water, they won't go for it. Sadly, this does happen when catching and releasing fish. Something like 40% of fish that actually gets released do die. So this is going to be one of those guys that's not going to go back into the water. Okay. And there we go, guys. While I was out trying to find some bluegill, wife landed a carp. Yay! And there we are, lovely little golden carp, small guy, but we're gonna get him back into the water. And off he goes. Alright guys, so what I'm talking about is we have a tree that's casting some shade. That's one of the spots that I'm trying to target, and we have some bushes that extend. That's a great place to try and find some fish. As well as having a place like this where we have reeds and we have some trees underwater. These are great places to try and find these little bluegill. The bigger bluegill are out in deeper and bigger schools, but you have to wait for them to swim around to come and get your baits. These small ones tend to hide in the structure, and that's where we're targeting them. And here we have a trout. And it came off. Problem with using these small hooks, but at least we caught something. And there we go, guys. Another green sunfish. Big mouth on this guy. Another green sunfish. Let's get him back into the water. So just by changing my presentation, having it down on the ground, being more natural, fish are more willing to go for it. These fish have some lovely colors on them. Close to their spawn as well. Let's get him back into the water. And off he goes. A lot of green sunfish, bluegill mixtures. Elongated body, that's how I know it's a green sunfish. Normally they have yellow fins, that's why I'm saying I think this one is a hybrid. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you can see the clouds we have back there. We have some stormy weather rolling through, bringing along lots of wind with it. But after 3 hours between me and the wife, we probably caught something like 30 fish out there today, just by changing the way we approach getting these fish, fishing more natural baits down on the bottom. A lot easier way to catch all these fish. Now, given a lot of these fish are green sunfish, they are the most eager sunfish out there. They're more willing to go for your baits than any of the bluegill, but we did get some bluegills in between and that one carp my wife caught. We all tend to start using the little bobber, but if you see that's not working, consider swapping over to something like a trout magnet or even a small Carolina rig and fishing that on the bottom. Alright, but I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Feel free to ask any questions down below in the comments. If you have not subscribed to the channel, consider hitting the red subscribe button, joining my community. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.